I'd like to start by asking some questions. Okay, first, do you ever feel unwilling to submit your work unless it's absolutely perfect? Second, do you have that tendency to set goals for yourself that are so high you can't possibly meet them? Or are you that person who sees every mistake as a huge failure instead of, seeing it as an important lesson? Okay, if you look around, you'll find so many self help books. They offer advice on how to be almost anything, how to be thinner, how to be more successful, how to be smarter, how to be richer. The list goes on and on. Probably it's because it's so sad. Many of us spend, an inordinate amount of time trying to fix ourselves in one way or another. So question is, why do we focus a lot on the negative instead of the positive? From when we were young, most of us, I suppose, have been taught that we have to be perfect to be good enough. But the thing is, if we were raised with our faults always, being pointed out to us, they become the first thing things, they become the first things that we see, unless, of course, we choose to change our perspective. Of course, we all know how difficult, it is to accept and love our imperfections. But hard as it might seem, it is possible to love even the ugliest, the most flawed parts of ourselves. And not only is it possible, it is important. We know that to have a positive and happy life. So to live positively and happily in the present, ano ba yung dapat nating gawin? Very important is that we must love ourselves for who we are. And loving ourselves means loving even the not so great parts of us, our imperfections. It might feel like, a constant battle, but that acceptance, that love is, of course, worth fighting for. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Thanks to Lindsay and Miss Agape and the entire Office of the Student Affairs of Mary Hill. Thank you for this opportunity. The topic that they gave me is something relatable. You love me at my best. You love me at my worst. I've been given 30 minutes, so let's continue. Okay, so can we read together what's on the screen? No one is perfect, absolutely no one. Like precious stones, we have a few flaws, but why focus on the flaws? Focus on what you like about yourself, and that will bring you happiness and peace. And according to Stephen Hawking, one of the basic rules of the universe is that nothing is perfect. Perfection simply doesn't exist. Without imperfection, neither you nor I would exist. So let's continue. Okay, let me be clear first, on this. I do not claim ownership of all these ideas that I will be sharing with you. Most came from my readings, interactions with people, and yes, from the book Wabi Sabi by Beth Kempton. Okay. Do you see the actor on the screen? Of course, who is this? The ever popular John Lloyd, right? So what is he saying here? She loved me at my worst, you had me at my best, pero binaliwala mo lang ang lahat and you chose to break my heart. Nakakalungkot naman. So what Popoy is trying to tell Basha here is, you don't love me only at my best. You should have loved me also at my worst. Like it or not, we're all flawed. Not a single one of us is perfect. And that's one of the great things about life. We're all the same. We all have so many wonderful, beautiful things to offer, and yet We're not always so wonderful. We're not always so beautiful. Not only do we have flaws, but each of us struggles, with feeling flawed, that feeling of imperfection. But whether the flaws that bother us are emotional, mental, or physical flaws, the key to overcoming them is knowing how to accept them and ultimately falling in love with them. Because as they say, our flaws are what make us unique. They are what ground us. They are, in a sense, what keep us in the here and now. So what do you see here? These are beautiful roses, right? But have you thought, what about their thorns? So here we are. We are able to say the roses are beautiful despite the thorns. Now, can you say the same thing, to yourself? Can you say, I am beautiful despite my flaws? I am beautiful despite my flat nose, despite my huge size, despite my short legs. The list goes on. If you are unable to say that to yourself, how can we expect people to accept us as we are with all our faults and imperfections if we cannot, do that ourselves? The key is what is called self love. And what is self love? Actually, it is, critical for happiness for a lot of reasons. Self love is a deliberate act that we make in order to provide care and compassion for ourselves. And that is first and foremost. How do we love ourselves? Some of you might think of self love as a day at the spa, right? Or a time spent with your Dharma or at your favorite cafe with your forever. But self love means so much more than that. But this feeling and attitude toward oneself may have different, meanings for various individuals. It's typically described as self-compassion, self-appreciation, and self-respect. By truly embracing your inner self, you will learn how to, to be gentle to yourself and your emotions instead of, striving for perfection or criticizing yourself for every mistake. So I embrace your flaws. You don't look at, accepting your flaws as complacency or probably lack of ambition. You look at it as compassion and self-love, knowing you'll never be perfect, knowing that you'll never look a certain way and you'll never entirely love everything about yourself, but that won't stop you from embracing your flaws, learning to love what you cannot change, feeling good enough, and knowing your worth instead of looking at yourself through the eyes of others. When you learn to accept your flaws, you're not susceptible to people's judgments. You're not susceptible to, people's words or opinions of you. No one can bully you. No one can shame you or hold your imperfections against you. The beauty of learning to accept your flaws is that it takes away, the pressure to impress people or the desire to always measure up to someone. When you learn to accept your flaws, you attract people to accept your imperfections too. You find people who don't make you feel like you need to change who you are. You find people who appreciate the fact that you're a little crazy, that you're sometimes a little loud, or sometimes, a little messy or a little bizarre, but they love you anyway. So when you learn to accept your flaws instead of criticizing and magnifying them, you create a healthy environment for yourself. You begin, to nurture yourself in all the right ways. You become stronger, you become more resilient, and of course, more confident. And you begin to understand that even with your flaws, you're still beautiful. And even with your flaws, you're still loved. When you learn to accept your flaws, you won't ever live questioning if you're good enough, for others. So as long as you feel good enough with yourself, that's fine. That's okay. So how do you embrace your flaws? First is this one is very important. You try to build a realistic self-image. How do you do that? You make a list of strengths and abilities, what you are proud of. Okay, include everything that you can think of. Do not exclude any quality because you think it might be unimportant, redundant, or unexceptional. List things like um, kindness, what else? Patience, uh, intelligence, loyalty. The thing is, sometimes there is so much focus on flaws that the strengths, a person possesses, get lost. But, when you have a comprehensive self image, this will help you to take, a more balanced view of yourself. So list also accomplishments such as achieved goals, moments you surprised yourself, hard times you survive. You can be proud of recovering from a hard situation, being able to move on after a heartbreak, or being present for a friend who has been sick, or was in a hard time. What else? Completing your projects at work or in school, or of course things you have learned. Say you learn how to play kalimba, or to do this be diamond bead, painting. Okay, write down the things you have learned to do so well. And of course, you have to be grateful, for all this, because, gratitude will help you to cultivate a positive mindset. And this will help you a lot, to accept yourself for who you really are. Okay, how else? You try to list and become aware of the traits also that upset you. You write freely, list the things you do that you don't feel, good about. List things about yourself that you wish would change. So you have to be specific here, right? So, for example, instead of writing the way I look or my face, no, you try to write, I don't like it when pimples come out on my face, or probably I don't like it when my skin breaks out. If you're writing about an incident, the advice is put it in as much context as possible. Okay, this is also very important. You try to consider how your past experiences have shaped your thoughts and habits. You ask yourself how you got your habits and way of being. Are they influenced by your father or mother? Are they cultural? Are they biological? When do they happen? Were you criticized by others? If, say, for instance, if you say things you later regret, ask yourself if this is a lack of tact you learn from, again, your dad or your mom or anyone from your family, or if it is just your reaction to an awkward situation when you were in tough situation, what got you out of them or through them. How did you learn to avoid problems, say when you were younger or when you were in grade school? So the tip here is the more you can understand these past behaviors, the more likely you can forgive yourself for them. So how else? You try to learn how to reframe your thoughts. What made you consider each of these things as flaws? Do these qualities have positive sides? Look at your list, of strengths and ask yourself if any of the strengths listed are also connected to the qualities you viewed as flaws. So start to think about your characteristics in a positive way. Say, for example, if you're stubborn, probably you're also determined, right? So determination can be a good trait when it comes to, tasks and, causes that matter. If you're a perfectionistic, you may thrive in fields where utmost care is needed to succeed or protect people, like probably, the surgeons, who else? Athletes, engineers, they all need to stick to high standards. So this is what we call positive reframing, right? It will not change, of course, these qualities, but it can give you a healthy, change in perspective that will help you to accept yourself. So how else can you embrace your flaws? Practice total self acceptance. So accept yourself without conditions. How do you do that? Okay, skip the self criticism. You treat yourself with loving compassion and respect as you would your best friend. Do not be so hard on yourself. And then, of course, I guess this is very, observable, very common among us, no? When we're given compliments. Say, for instance, okay, sinabihan ka, uy, ang ganda mo. Anong sagot natin? Malimit. "Eh, hindi nga eh, kasi puyat nga ako. Ang dami ko ngang pimples, oh, kita mo pa nga yung aking mga eye bags." Hello? When you are praised, say thank you, especially if a compliment is sincere. It is rude, impolite to reject it. To reject, a compliment means you're missing out on a chance, for a positive connection with another. And, what else? A positive, affirmation for yourself. So that your friends, that your families, affirm you. Okay, let them compliment you. Notice also if someone, is trying to put you down. This is also very important, right? Some cruelty comes disguised as kindness. Do you have a friend who is always pointing out your shortcomings? Does anyone in your life make fun of you or criticize you in public or in private? And when you are, feeling proud of something, does anyone try to, take you down, a notch by acting confused or, condescending? So if you have this kind of company of people, try to, eliminate these people from your life. Or if you can't do that, you try to spend as little time with them as possible. And then, of course, improving, ourselves can be fruitful, right? But uh, you have to love yourself first. So when you improve, if you like to improve on something, you try to learn to love it first. Okay, accept the state you are in before you try to make changes. If you try to fix yourself without, acknowledging or um, yeah, accepting, your inner inherent, value and beauty first, you may cause yourself harm. So for example, if you would like to do better in school, first you tell yourself, I am talented, I am intelligent, I am hardworking, and I have, dreams and ambitions. I am capable of doing the work I have set out to do. Do this instead of saying, for example, I'm too stupid, I'm too lazy, I failed my last exam, and more likely will fail the next one again. So once you have a positive framework, you can work on your plan of action. Remember, your flaw is what it is. Accept it and realize that it is a part of you. Do not compare it to others or rate it on a scale of, good or bad. And while you do the evaluation of your flaws, dapat honest ka. Huwag mong ipipeke, no? You have to, yeah, be honest with yourself. Keep in mind that there are flaws which come naturally, those you can't change, those you cannot change. Having something imperfect in your body is, what you need to accept and, of course, start loving. There are also some, flaws which you develop go incidentally. For example, you're being a little bit sarcastic. This can be changed, with time, right? So if it is something you cannot or will not change, acceptance is the only option, for truly loving yourself, all of yourself. Your flaws make you who you are, so embrace them. So you try to, how do you do it? How do you say it? You reframe how you view self improvement. When there is something you want to work on, you are not actually eliminating or hiding a flaw of yours, right? Rather, you are improving something. You are learning new skills. So, for example, you want to improve on, like you talk too much, right? So instead of saying, I'm going to stop talking so much, tell yourself, I'm going to learn how to listen better. Or instead of saying, I'm going to stop, being so judgmental, probably you can try, I'm going to work harder on understanding and accepting, perspectives and, lifestyles different from my own. And instead of, yeah, saying, I'm going to lose weight, probably you can try, saying, I'm going to work on taking better care of my body by exercising more, eating better, and reducing stress. What do you think? Okay, and another important, tip is this. You should learn to recognize unrealistic standards. There are a lot of images, beliefs and ideas that we encounter in this world that may not be, of course, realistic to hold, ourselves or others up to. This may come from the media or from organizations or from the schools or probably from our family and friends. No, if you find yourself unhappy with some aspect of yourself, you may have to confront, these ideas. For example, uh, looking like a model. Most models have professional hairstylists, what else, makeup artists, lighting, artists, photo editors to adjust their looks, right? Uh, what else? Being a perfect student. Even excellent students, they do struggle, right? And they make mistakes, from time to time. What else we know is schools like, Mary Hill, or, you focus on STEM, right, and literacy. But the truth is, these are not the only, important skills in life. Just because, academics or school doesn't come easily to you, doesn't mean that you won't succeed later. There are other skills that matter and could be important to your future job. Consider work ethics, consider creativity, friendliness, empathy, social skills, a lot. And then another thing is, measuring up, to a family member. If, say, for instance, your ate graduated summa cum laude, so there's so much pressure on your part, to be like ate. But, remember, everyone of us, everyone gets a different mix of, talents, interests, and aptitudes. While a family member might succeed more in one area, you may be doing better in other areas. So this is not a competition. So, how else can you embrace your flaws? You try to move forward, you proceed, forge ahead. Know the difference between self improvement and self acceptance. Embracing your whole self, good and bad, does not mean you cannot, commit yourself to personal growth. You've heard a lot about, growth mindset, that you try to have that growth mindset. Embracing yourself simply means that you accept yourself, not just the good or the bad, but the whole package, your whole self. You are who you are, and that is okay, flaws and all. Acceptance means you accept yourself as you are in this moment, imperfect and unique, with no conditions. If you keep thinking, I can accept myself If I just, stop eating so much and lose weight, then you are placing a condition on your self-acceptance. You try to feel free to pursue, self-improvement, making yourself more effective or stronger, but never make that a condition of your self-acceptance. Important also is, okay, it's natural to struggle or feel down about ourselves sometimes, right? So learn how to ask for help. One of the ways to make things better is you try to talk about your feelings and ask, the people around you for support. You have your teachers, you have your advisors, you have friends, you have your counselors. You don't have to be alone, and you deserve help. So if you are having a hard time at school or work, you talk to someone that can provide, a listening ear and help you figure out how to make things better. If you often feel very negatively, towards yourself, you try to consider, asking, a psychologist or RGC, a registered, guidance counselor, to screen you for issues such as anxiety and depression. It can get better, and getting help is the first step. Now, how do you see yourself? Are you a finished product or, a work in progress? I guess it's much better that you see yourself as a work in progress because time and experience allow for opportunities, to work on, allow us opportunities, to work on our flaws. It usually, takes time, and we make lots of mistakes, to mature and develop. And yes, it can, even, for some, it can even take years, but you have to have patience with yourself. Demanding that flaws get resolved, easily and quickly will lead to disappointment. Bakit? Kasi nga, we grow and develop and learn over an entire lifetime. For example, your classmate in grade school who's always asked, to report at the principal office for misbehavior, grow into a responsible, adult, na surprised ka. Or your nephew who was a poor student, when he was younger, turns his grades around when he learns, some new study skills or new study habits. Or your barkada who struggled, to keep an engineering or computer job and gainfully employed as a professor or manager. Di ba nakaka-surprise yun? O kaya the father who used to yell at his toddlers, became more patient, and open, to listening as his kids, approached teen years. These only show na may pag-asa tayo. A lot can happen, right? A lot can happen. Okay? So have patience. Okay? Now, you've heard about support groups, right? Okay, these are available for a number of reasons. Okay, from self-esteem building to eating disorder recovery. You try consider, looking up local support groups or finding, positive online spaces if there is a particular thing you struggle with. The group can help you understand and accept your traits, and they can make you feel less alone. Like yes, and then of course, like what we were mentioning earlier about, the company of people that you have to keep. You try to hang out with positive people, you choose to spend time with people who help you feel good about yourself. You try to limit your contact with people who make you feel worse. It's important to spend time with people who lift you up and make you happier. So, if a flaw is something you can change, like perhaps you shout or snap at people often, then you can work on that reaction and, begin to soften or stop it. But if one of your flaws is something you can't do anything about, Like, for example, of course, flaws can be, relative, right? Uh, like what? Like not being tall enough. Okay, then you need to forgive your humanity and just let yourself be who and what you are. So, okay, so on that note, I would like to give you, this takeaway messages. Okay, let's read together again. What's on the screen? Nobody is perfect. We make mistakes. We say wrong things. We do wrong things. We fall. We get up. We learn. We grow. We move on. We live. I really believe that it is honesty about our imperfect selves that make everyone do better and be better. So you are perfectly imperfect just as you are. Okay. So thank you very much. And yeah, it is unfortunate that I am not able to see you, in person or even virtually because the request was to pre-record this. Now, it's a little weird, because I am just talking to myself and I don't know where to look at, I hope next time around I will have the opportunity to interact with you in person, and so thank you again and stay, stay safe always.